Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as always by Mr. Tucker Hazel, Mr. Scuba
Oh,
diving expert Tucker
yes.
Hazel, because we are here today to talk about, as you can see in our background, Endless Ocean,
Oh, yeah.
particularly Endless Ocean Luminous.
That one.
My camera's mirrored. There it is.
Yeah.
We both played a good amount of the game.
Yeah.
This isn't like a formal review or anything. This is more of us jumping in to share our thoughts on the game, its position in the larger Switch library, I
Yeah.
would say, its relation to the other titles in the series,
Yeah.
and just generally talk about what is pretty obviously going to be one of the most niche titles
Totally.
of the
Yeah.
Switch's generation.
And frankly, I would be shocked if it cracked that 1 million barrier.
Yeah. Let's
There's one. We can confirm one copy at least has been sold. It is in our house.
True, and I have another.
Well,
so that's
digital
two
doesn't
copies.
count.
Yeah, Nintendo doesn't count digital sales. Let's just lay the groundwork a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously,
Lay a little pipe.
if you've clicked on this video, you know what Endless Ocean is, but
Yes.
you don't know our history with Endless Ocean.
If you're one of the 5 people that clicked on this video.
I have played Endless Ocean 1 to completion. I actually I knew the series for a while, but I didn't really ever have the opportunity to dive into it. No pun intended, but I made it anyway. Until when I was writing for Ninty Fresh, I wrote a retrospective of the first Endless Ocean game, and I found it.
I'll read that sometime, actually.
Yeah, I can actually dig that out for you.
Yeah.
But I found it really captivating.
Link in the description, right?
I can put a link to the storefront there, sure.
Well, I'm sorry. It's a magazine. That's
magazine.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I found it really captivating. And then I didn't play Blue World. I didn't have Blue World. And then I actually, by happenstance, a couple months before Luminous was announced, bought that copy.
Totally unrelated.
Totally unrelated.
Totally unrelated, though related to the fact that we have been doing a lot of Wii collecting in the past 6-7 months. Because those games are starting to go up in prices a little bit. They're still very affordable. Blue World's still a game you can get for like $15.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad. But continue.
Well, that's basically my groundwork.
Okay.
I came into Endless Ocean Luminous having played and really thought a lot about the first game. And having not played Blue World.
Yes.
I popped it into my Wii for literally like half an hour. We didn't get a chance to actually play it yet. I'm going to, I think, very soon circle back and play it, because as we're going to get into, that is maybe the apex of the series in some ways.
Though we can't do one-to-one complete comparisons, because I was with you when we were playing Endless Ocean for the first time.
Yeah.
We played a little bit of it together. I got the general concept, but it wasn't until Luminous that I completely dove in to an Endless Ocean game.
Yeah.
And so, unlike many of the reviews that you might see about this game, discussion about this game, we're not going to be doing, this isn't in the new game because it was in the old one, stuff like that, because we're not 100% familiar.
Right.
But I think we played enough of Luminous, especially because, interestingly enough, for a game about a wide ocean, I would consider this game relatively shallow.
Sure.
I feel like we can have a pretty comprehensive conversation about what this game has, what are its strengths, what its weaknesses, and this is going to be a discussion mostly about, in my mind, the disparity, or if the disparity even matters, between design and vibes, like design intention that's just experiential and not so much mechanical depth or variety. Because I think Endless Ocean straddles or Luminous especially, and I assume the other games, to different degrees, straddle this line between being mechanically very simple. I mean, in Luminous's case, lacking a little bit of variety, but very focused on its goal, which is providing a serene, very relaxing, very easygoing experience, which is where the game succeeds and it fails in other areas.
Yeah, I mean, so what I will say comparing Endless Ocean Luminous to the Wii titles is that it is no doubt lacking a sort of breadth of content those games had. And we've made this point to our friends and to each other. It is essentially what Nintendo Switch Sports is to the Wii Sports title. So just to say, it's sort of a revival of the spirit and the vibe and the general concept, obviously, but sort of lacking the breadth of ideas that the previous games had. The biggest example and the biggest point of contention for a lot of people with Luminous is the story mode. You know, in the original Endless Ocean and in 2, in Blue World, you have very involved narratives with a cast of characters and fairly substantial missions that take you around the ocean in particular ways. And so that is obviously largely absent from Luminous. There is a story mode here, but it's really tacked on. It actually
might be one of the worst excuses for a story mode I've ever played, and I do actually think that's a good place to start.
Sure.
Because if you are purchasing this game thinking that it is going to be a satisfactory single player experience, I think that you'll be sorely disappointed. I think what's interesting about this game, and actually comparing it to Nintendo Switch Sports, is this is very, very, very much from a design and content level about an online shared experience. The progression is very much tied to character customization in the same way that Nintendo Switch Sports was, and a lot of the variety and challenge and experience comes from cooperating and experiencing this world with others, which was a big thing about Switch Sports. Is it wasn't a great single player experience, but it was very much tailored in its design to play this with others, and will be a vastly superior experience.
Let me suggest something here. Okay. I think that I think it matters whether or not you want to progress in Ocean Luminous.
Sure.
My voice crashed. I had a good idea and then my fucking windpipe fucked it up. But I don't really have any issues with this game.
Okay.
But that's not me saying the game is perfect.
Yeah, of course.
But when we did a big multiplayer session with our friend Josh Goldie, and he was remarking as we talked a little bit about the different versions of Endless Ocean on that stream, and he was saying that Endless Ocean Luminous is really in a lot of ways what Endless Ocean 1 was going to be. This more directionless.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a positive or a negative. I simply mean as an objective quality of the design and a directionless.
The direction was for the game to be open.
Yeah, and so for me, I do look at Luminous and say, well, I in some ways I do wish that they had more of the more traditional game-like elements of the past titles. Endless Ocean 1 story. Endless Ocean 2 has a lot more interactions with the fish. There's an obvious lack of mechanics here. But I don't really think that's a problem. And I think that if you want the game for the sake of diving and exploring and immersing yourself in, as you were saying, this vibe, I don't even really think that the progression matters. I don't even think that you need to play this game with other people. I have played it quite a bit with other people online, but I've also played it solo.
Yeah.
And to me, there's not really a quality difference between the solo experience and multiplayer experience, which isn't to say that that the game is equally designed on a progression level.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is there's a different fun for me in diving by myself and looking for fish by myself, or playing with you guys and warping to find mystery board challenges and emoting together and taking fun group pictures and all this stuff and pushing along the traditional objectives of the game. But I don't necessarily, for me, think that the objective weirdness of the progression or anything really impacts my experience one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I shared a similar experience with you in that most of my time playing this game has been solo. I played almost 8 hours of this game the first day I got it by myself. I did, I think it's 3 or 4
to
solo
clarify,
dives.
when you were doing that, were you playing solo dives or were you playing like you with not talking to other people but online?
I did one online asynchronous dive where I was in a world with other people, but to that point I don't think I knew that you could join random people. I thought you had to invite to the friend code or whatever. This game does some interesting things about its social aspects that I just don't really talk about, but I played a lot of this game, and I fully admit that, and again, let's do a little more groundwork, lay a little more pipe.
Okay,
I like this game. I enjoy this game. I would give it a high 6 or a low 7 out of 10. It is an enjoyable experience. It is very focused in its own intent, but I do think that when I referenced it being shallow before, it's that I think that the initial experience of the wonder of this world and the exploration and the discovery of new fish species and even how white it is, but learning about the Ocean and his history and stuff and finding these artifacts, that is all there, and I think it provides a very compelling end to this world. And so that's how I played 8 hours in this game on one day, which is a lot. That's a lot. And I think it has a very satisfying gameplay loop. But I think the difference then becomes, in terms of why I would more directly criticize this game for feeling imbalanced between single player and multiplayer, is I think that charm goes away very quickly when you realize that the randomly generated nature of this game means that it frankly feels kind of fake at times, especially once you've played enough to notice the repetition and the randomly generated nature. And it makes some of the things that you're discovering, whether it is a cool fish species or an interesting element in the water, like a cool shaped rock or whatever, feel, I think, significantly less special once, even if you're only 7-8 hours into an experience that you would, that wants you to spend 30 hours in it to see everything. Once you're 7 hours in and you're already like, oh yeah, this is like really like patchworked together, and I've already seen this exact fish in this exact spot, and I know if I go in this hole, like there'll be a tunnel on the side and go up. It definitely lost a lot of its wonder to me very quickly. But again, I think that is because the design effort went into making this a very social experience, and I think that came at the cost of having the solo experience feel meaningful for an extended period of time.
Sure. I mean, I it's interesting, right? Because obviously this game comes from Arika, and we now know for a fact that it comes from Arika.
Yes.
And Arika, for people who might not be familiar, sure, they made the other Endless Ocean games.
Yeah. And previously, games called Blue World on PS2.
Everblue.
Blue World's that one.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah.
Everblue, which were basically proto Endless Ocean games on PlayStation only.
Yeah, published by Capcom, and then essentially Endless Ocean is the spiritual successor to Everblue. But nowadays you'll know Arika for Tetris 99, and you'll know them for Pac-Man 99 and Mario 35. Dr. Luigi. I guess,
you would. Yeah, that's actually not a very good game. But
if you look at Tetris 99, Tetris 99 I think is an exceptional game.
Sure.
But if you were to sit down and play Tetris 99 all weekend and play nothing other than Tetris 99 for hours and hours and hours at a time, there'll be an intrinsic fun to the fact that this is a competitive multiplayer that will provide a sense of intrinsic engagement and variety, because you're against different opponents, you got to make different decisions, but it's going to be a very repetitive experience.
Of course, yeah.
I think that what Arika makes, and part of the reason why I don't really know how I feel about Endless Ocean Luminous on the whole yet, is that I don't really think it matters if this game is fun for a binge 12 hours playtime in a week.
Yeah.
I think that's largely irrelevant to how Arika develops their games.
Okay.
Because they make games that are supposed to last for a really long time.
Yeah, sure.
And to me, the real test of if Endless Ocean Luminous ends up being one of my favorite games of the year, or if it ends up being just a sort of curiosity from the end of Nintendo Switch's life, is whether or not I feel like I want to keep playing this. Yeah. Whether the
and we haven't reached. It's less than a week, or just over a week from the game came out, so you've not had the time to have that settle in yet.
Yeah, because the way I played the game is
let that sink in.
Yeah. I mean, you played more Endless Ocean Luminous in one day than I've played of Endless Ocean Luminous in this past week. And that's not me saying that you played the game wrong and I played the game right or anything really. But I just think that based on the games that Arika makes, I'm playing it the way that I played Tetris 99.
Sure.
Which is, in high school, I'd come home, and when I was relaxing before I started homework or whatever, I'd play Tetris 99 for like half an hour. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's to me, that's why Endless Ocean Luminous is fun in single player or multiplayer, because I'm playing it not to try to unlock the next story mode chapter, or not to try to find the next mystery board thing inherently, but simply to dive for an hour, put the game back in the shelf, and dive again later.
Yeah, and I fully admit that is the quote-unquote intended experience of this game. That is where any flaws that I might, and I would personally say rightfully, criticize this game for can be mitigated, and maybe even these were some of the sort of design decision discussions they were making while producing this game of, look, we want people to play this way. We think that most people will play it in that they do an hour-long dive a couple times a week, or over a longer period of time, that they won't necessarily notice the progression, the I would say poorly paced progression, and any elements of repetition that I might be critiquing the game for. I totally understand that. However, I think that what this game proves to me is that this was a low budget. I don't know how quick they turned this around, but it seems like it was a project that was not given the scope that would have allowed a breadth of approach to this game that we know is possible from the previous games that they've produced, to provide comparatively. Hold on, I'm trying to use big boy words. Trying to deliver comparatively comprehensive experiences.
Yeah.
Because in the way that I play games, I have no interest in playing a game over the course of a month.
Sure.
I don't play games that have long tails.
Yeah.
I play them over the course of a week, maybe 2 weeks. I mean, if it's a long game, like Tears of the Kingdom or something, or Animal Crossing, okay, I'll play that for a month. But that kind of game approach is totally antithetical to the way that I play games. And when I'm approaching it through the lens of, I'm really enjoying this for 8 hours, because that's how I like to play games. If a game is really grabs me, I want to sit there and I want to play it all day and I want to really immerse myself in it. And because I played it that way, I was able to very clearly notice progression flaws, story mode, single player flaws, which I definitely want to get into, and the randomly generated nature that I think is great in concept, but in execution, because it is randomly generated from a relatively small pool of assets, I think intent of this game to feel like it's ever changing and always something around the next corner, you don't know what it's going to be. I find that concept, in my opinion, kind of a veneer, to disappear very quickly.
Sure.
Because this was a small scale operation. they don't have a ton of assets to work with. The effort was very clearly put into making the online experience with 30 people, which is a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the tag system and the leveling up and leveling up your rank to unlock new stickers and new emotes and stuff. That's where the design effort very clearly went, because there's a lot of that. But it very clearly did not go into other areas that makes a certain approach to exploring this game and being in its world, I think, markedly inferior of an experience.
Yeah, I mean, can you quickly just pull up, because you had it up before, can you pull up who directed this game?
This game? Luminous. Oh, this guy.
Yes.
Okay, hold on.
Because I want to check something here, because I think you made a lot of really good points.
Akito Kitamura.
Yeah, and I'm just looking here. He was a director
of
this
game.
Yes,
Luminous,
to be clear.
Yes.
He was not one of the directors of Blue World.
Okay, sure.
Blue World was directed by, I'm seeing here, 3 people.
Okay.
Akira Kurebayashi, Masaki Tawara, and Yuri Hattori.
Sure.
I'm curious to also very quickly look at the director for the first game.
Sure.
This is an important point I want to raise.
Okay.
As long as I'm right, and this person did not work on either of the previous games here.
Credits for Endless Ocean, drumroll please.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay,
it's the same directors of the first 2 games. I think you make a lot of points there together that are important.
Sure.
The first is a very high level point, which is the production context of this game.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing games from Nintendo this year, and we just saw it in Nintendo World Championships, NES Edition.
Yeah.
We're seeing games that are clearly developed to fit slots in the calendar.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think that is going to temper, or for me, it tempers the expectations I have when I go into a lot of these games.
Okay, sure.
Because I understand whether this is, not to say that this should give the game a pass or not, but I just understand that these are games developed not with the sort of free development cycles that games like Tears of the Kingdom or Mario Odyssey or Mario Wonder have gotten. Pikmin 4, these are games that are developed because we need to fill the calendar.
Definitely. And I think also potentially likely, this game is in development. We need it to be done by this point.
Right, yeah.
Because what's interesting about Luminous, and compared to the other games in this series, which again, I'm not fully familiar with, if almost at all, that it feels like it can have a wider scope. That there are these attempts to make it something more, but that things were halted.
Well, this is my point ultimately at a high level, because you're right. There was, I think you can put some of the blame here on Nintendo on a producer level, establishing budget, establishing timeline that probably made Luminous the way that it is.
Yeah.
But the other point is, and the reason I wanted to just look at the director, is that the director of Luminous directed Tetris 99.
Yeah.
The director of Luminous did not direct the first Endless Ocean game. Did not direct.
Yes. And I would say that there is more than likely, and I can actually do this research while I'm looking, I would bet that the Everblue games were probably directed by very similar people, or if not produced by similar people.
I think that's interesting information, but it's more to say that the Arika that exists now is not the Arika that was making games in the Wii era.
No, totally.
Arika has not made a game. Well, they do some co-development work, but they've not made a game on their own of the scale of an Endless Ocean Blue World in forever.
Yeah. Well, and frankly, it feels a little out of place in their lineup in terms of since the middle of the Wii U to now, they were just making puzzle games, online games only, like very simple things that for what they were, most of these games were free for NSO and designed for online play. Perfect games for that. I mean, Tetris 99 still to this day is probably one of the best reasons to get NSO is that you get that game for free. It's a great game. They're still updating it constantly.
Yeah.
Actually, they might have even
There's
added
an
Endless
Ocean.
Which is awesome. Which is awesome. Yeah. And that's probably one of the best games of the Switch generation. But Luminous is a totally different project for them.
Yeah, this is a whole different conversation. It's not really gonna get into it, but it's sort of similar to how I have I wouldn't say a degree of skepticism, but a degree of just curiosity as to whether Metroid Prime 4 will even feel like the past Metroid Prime games
because no one's there.
The retro, I mean the retro that made the Prime titles is not the retro that's at that studio right now, and so. When you're talking about these points of, for you, the most compelling elements of Luminous are these online features, well, it makes perfect sense because from the moment from the moment you boot up Luminous, the menu looks and feels like the modern menu to the other Arika games,
but it also very much feels like a Wii game because they're using the same Wii font. I don't know if you noticed that. It's the same font that like Wii menus use. I'm like, that's an interesting throwback. Just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, and I mean, to that end, I think part of the reason I do like the game a lot is it does feel authentically of that era. Sure. In some ways. Yeah. Like we're saying, there's obviously so much modern Arika in here. Totally. But I think, when you're working with an IP like Endless Ocean that's so directly tied to the Wii, it's going to inherently appeal to me to some degree, right? Sure. That generation means a lot to me. But I think also I sort of set my own expectations internally for this is going to not be this is not the scope game the way that a lot of Nintendo's stuff from their other bigger teams are that came out last year or whatever. Yeah. So I it's not that I think that Endless Ocean Luminous is a phenomenal game, or that the issues, the progression aren't there, or that the story mode is not blatantly significantly inferior to what was in the past games by tenfold. Yeah, but it's just that I don't. It doesn't detract from what I got this game for.
No, that's fair. I think that for me, it's just a scale of missed potential because I can totally recognize and fully admit that this is produced in a different context. Yeah, it's produced under by different people under the context of late generation Switch. More than likely, what we're saying of Nintendo wanting this to be out at a certain time, limiting the budget for it. I would really love to get some developer interviews, producer interviews about why this game was chosen at this time, when it started development, because I think that these things will all provide great context as to why this game turned out the way that it did. But ultimately, to me, what matters is the end product. Sure. And with this end product, actually very similar to a game that we talked about a couple of years ago, Kirby Dream Buffet. Yeah. It was a great foundation, but it's very easy for me to see where, if not corners were cut, concepts were halved because Endless Ocean Luminous is a game with a big world and lots of great fish models and very serene music and a very interesting and unique, I would say, focus on online play, and these things are all great, but I would much rather this be Endless Ocean 99, lean totally into this is only an online thing, make the world even more about collaboration and exploration and things like that with other people online, and not do a single player mode. Because when I start up and it says story mode, and I'm like, well, I should jump into that. It'll teach me the controls. And that's all the single player does. Right. The story mode is, I think it's 10 missions. It's broken up into 5 chapters. Chapter 1, I think, is 3. Like it's broken up in like a 1-1, 1-2 kind of way. None of the missions are more than 4 or 5 minutes long. They basically only exist to teach you mechanics and give you a very, very, very scant narrative. There's this other diver, Daniel. You've got this robot AI, Sarah. But to me, hopping into a game and seeing that on the menu there is play online, do a solo dive, or do a story mission, and they're presented as definitely not in execution, but in menu placement equal pillars of this game, and I
So,
hop
yeah, that's a good
into
point.
the story mode, and there's just I'm immediately hit in the face of, oh, this is low budget.
Yeah.
The AI voice, which I'm able to excuse for a little bit because there's a lot of writing in this game.
Yeah.
But the AI voice that feels very, very stock standard, the very canned animations that are very clearly reusing emotes from the multiplayer, the fact that the story mode is very chopped up and the load times are really bad. It shows me that there's this vestigial idea of the campaign from the other game. There's the concept that people know that Endless Ocean has story modes.
Yeah.
People. Let's use that with fucking hand quotes. So we have to have a story mode. That's not necessarily true, and I think this game would have been better if they didn't lean entirely into the multiplayer online elements, because I think that's where it's at its best. But there is a story mode, and it is very, very bad. It is chopped up. Yeah. It is low budget. It actually makes the progression more annoying and I think this is the biggest pro and con with this game, depending on where you come at it from a design perspective, is that the progression is very, very slow. And it is about filling out this 99 slot mystery board. Yeah. Interesting. 99. Anyone? Tetris 99?
I think you said this to me. I think there's a chance that this game was not meant to be a retail game at some point in time.
Yeah, it's possible. And you have to unlock all 99 of those mystery board things in order to get to the last story mission, which I will more than likely never do, and never see what that last mission is, even if it could be interesting. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because the progression, not only you have to unlock a ton of things, and the last mission is unlocked behind those, but in order to get those mystery board things, you aren't doing anything interesting. It is all based on randomly generated things. It is not particularly generous with its random generation. It is, you find a box and it has a coin in it. You have a tablet and it says a little bit of text, and most of them are, you find a UML, which are these sort of big rare creatures that spawn once per map, and it is not very generous with the UMLs. And so in terms of variety of them, there's like 20. I've only seen 4, and I've done over 10 dives. And so what that means is I would basically just have to grind this game. And again, to the point I was making earlier, I think if Nier falls away very quickly, it feels not unique to find a UML when you're seeing the same UML with the same can animation and the same. You have to watch this fucking cutscene where Sarah describes, "Ooh, this is the thing. It does this. We're gonna go find it here." When I saw that for the 4th time, I'm like, I'm not interested in going to scan this because I've already scanned it. I'm not going to get anything else from scanning it again. I know there are more of them, but I might have to play 100 plus dives in order to see all the UMLs, and then by that extension, see the final mission of the game in its half-ass story mode. Those are things that just like put roadblocks in front of me from experiencing the game. I think they want you to be immersed in it, but I think design decisions, budget decisions, pacing decisions very clearly are just like slap me in the face with making me realize there was a budget here, making me realize there's like a condensed production schedule. And I don't want to feel those things. I want to be immersed in the world, but I just saw that canned animation for the 40th time and heard the same line of dialogue, and that totally breaks immersion.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, I think that their decision to build a story mode as a story mode was sort of an odd one.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me a lot of F-Zero GX, and I've said this to you a billion times. Yeah, but there's a story mode in F-Zero GX that you unlock by getting tickets from the Grand Prix mode. Mm-hmm. And then you play these very short and frankly very hard. I'm a hater of the F-Zero GX story mode. Sure. People love it, but I think that's a different conversation. The story mode is not the heart of the game. The heart of the game is the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
The story mode chapters become a reward for doing the Grand Prix.
Yes. And that's what they're trying to go for here.
Yeah.
But the progression is so stilted that I don't think it feels like rewards. I think it feels like fucking finally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I'm not playing F-Zero GX to complete the story mode, and I'm not playing Endless Ocean Luminous to do that either. I don't personally see me finishing this game as me finishing the story mode. Sure. I don't really care about that.
And the likelihood is that you might never even see the end of that story mode.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying with the low budget nature of the game.
Yeah.
But to me, the low budget nature of the game is just an objective quality of it, which is to say, it's low budget. That's what they had.
Yeah.
And I guess the hard thing for me to navigate is like ultimately, the game couldn't have had a higher budget. Because if it could have had a higher budget, Nintendo would have given it a higher budget.
Yeah.
Because there's not much precedent for Nintendo Switch games to look evidently low budget.
Yeah. I mean, and the only other examples you can point to are and I think this kind of falls into a similar sphere of what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
The games that feel like they need to be put out by a certain point.
Yeah.
Mostly the Mario sports games, a Switch Sports, where it's like, obviously the content was planned for a bigger production timeline, and no, the game needs to be out now to hit. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, and I mean, even in the case of those, I feel like they had I think I don't even think it's a budget problem there. I think it's like in some ways it's a timing problem. In some ways it's a misread of like what people are willing to put up with in terms of post-launch support.
Sure.
Like Nintendo Switch Sports is a highly polished game.
Oh, totally, yeah.
I don't think that game feels low budget. I wouldn't even argue that the Camelot games do necessarily. Sure. I think it's more that they had a very weird model for those titles.
Yeah.
When I play Endless Ocean Luminous, I don't see this as a game that is missing content. I see it as a game that had a low budget and it executed when it could have been that budget. Sure. Like I'm not here like wanting for that golf mode the way it was in Nintendo Switch Sports.
What's a golf mode?
Well, like
golf. Golf. I thought you said GULF.
Right,
I was thinking oceans.
Yeah,
I was thinking swimming.
Like when I played
golf mode. I didn't know if that was a mode in the older games.
Yeah, no, that's funny. Like when I'm playing Nintendo Switch Sports, I'm saying to myself, man, it's obvious that there's something missing here.
Yeah.
When I see Endless Ocean Luminous, I say, man, this is the budget they had.
Yeah.
And I think that they could have been more effective with that budget in some ways.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think the story mode is odd. I would have called it something different. I would have called it like snapshots from the deep or something.
I mean, frankly, I would just call it tutorial mode. It's a tutorial.
You could just call it tutorial mode also. I think that's totally fair. I mean,
But then I also would not lock the final tutorial mission behind completing the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd. And I think they could have shifted things around a little bit.
It's misallocation of resources, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal Endless Ocean Luminous has a finite map and a story mode within it, and then the Veiled Sea procedural generations in the multiplayer side of things. Totally. But we couldn't have had that game, and that's why I find this game quite intriguing to talk about and impossible for me to really score, because I view it for what it is, and
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't think that is necessarily a wholly accurate reading of the differing opinions on this, because I see it for what it is too. A game with missed potential. Yeah. A game where executed within its budget, yes, but executed poorly in many areas.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that you're wanting it to be. I'm just,
of course,
what I'm saying is I see what they had for time.
Sure.
I see what they had for budget. I think that's transparent.
Sure, very much so.
And I'm not denying that.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is that's not what it doesn't factor into my experience that much.
Okay, yeah.
Because to me,
let's talk about that experience.
Yeah, and because the experience for me is really the only thing that matters.
Sure.
Endless Ocean Luminous is a very calming game to me.
Totally.
I really enjoy playing it. I really enjoy slowly swimming around and finding fish and taking nice pictures of them in photo mode and cataloging that and encountering other divers. I find it to be very peaceful. I really love the ocean. I mean, that's it. Like if this game was set in a forest, I don't know if it would have appealed to me as much.
Yeah. If it was Africa for PS3.
If it was Africa for PS3, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
Yeah. There's a copy of that at
Kickback.
The game store we have. Yeah, it's like $250 or $300 something like that.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
But
one day, once BLB's raking in the dough, I will buy Africa.
We will spend the first $300 of BLB's earnings on the copy of Africa.
Yeah, that's a terrible idea.
I just enjoy that serenity. Sure. I enjoy the setting. I love taking pictures of the fish, and I don't need the game to be more than that. And I understand that I'm a small contingent of players here, 100%.
You're like one person's worth.
Yeah. But as I'm swimming around and as there is schools of fish around me and I get to find sea turtles and swim with them, and I get to slowly take pictures and wait for the fish to swim and turn and get a good shot, I love that.
Yeah.
For an hour every couple of days, being back under the ocean, being reconnected to this game that I think also has signifiers of an era of Nintendo that I really love.
Yeah.
it's a more emotionally captivating experience to me than a mechanically captivating one. Yeah. But a lot of my favorite games are. I mean, Tetris Effect obviously is a game of rock solid gameplay. Yeah. But really, it's an emotional experience. Sure. And that's what I get out of Endless Ocean Luminous.
Yeah, I mean that's the experience that the developers were hoping for. Yeah. They wanted to connect people on that level, but like just the vibes of the experience, as I was alluding to. I mean, that's kind of the nature of this discussion. It's vibes over design, frankly, and that's not a bad thing. That is an intentional design decision. It is where the budget went. It's what this sort of game, experience wise, delivers. Yeah. For me, I want to agree with you. Sure. And I certainly did agree with you more so. Yeah. Earlier on in how long I've played this game. Sure. But as I've played it more, I've realized that I wish it could deliver both experiences. Totally. I wish it could be like Tetris Effect and many games that have great vibes. A game like New Horizons, which is a game that just looking at a screenshot of or listening to the music, my mind is transported to the wind rustling through the trees and like my little guys piddling around in the background. I want Endless Ocean to be that game for me. Actually, even another one, Abzu, is totally a game like that for me. Of hearing Austin Wintory's score like gives me fucking goosebumps, and just like looking at the aesthetic and underwater, it's like it's very much that for me. But what all the other games deliver is solid design. Sure. They have beautiful visuals in the way that Endless Ocean can look kind of scuffy, and the texture work can be a little bit muddy. They have breadth of content that Endless Ocean attempts to have past its own scope, right? But then I think falters because it is maybe reaching beyond its own boundaries. I mean, it's trying to have more, but then you're like you're spreading yourself a little too thin. And I wish this game did have the bigger budget to execute on what I think the end goal experience of this is, delivery wise, of having a, even if not great but more fleshed out story mode, having more options in terms of the Veiled Sea can generate more different kinds of terrain. Sure. Because I think that those two elements of the game are at odds with themselves. There are these design elements that are present, and they are all the way through the game. And then there's the vibes experience that in my experience is hampered by the design decisions of I want to immerse myself in this, but I can't because there's this fucking canned animation nonsense and things like that.
No, I think what you're suggesting rightfully is that there's little things that could be done to make the design frustration less apparent. Yeah. The mystery board for me is maybe the most bizarre element of the game, because
it almost feels like a Super Smash Bros. Style achievements thing.
Yeah, but it's not in one critical way. Exactly. And that's what actually I wanted to raise.
It's required.
No, not even that. When you play when you look at the challenge board in Smash.
Oh, that's right.
You don't know all of them. Yeah. And I think that's totally fine. Yeah. You basically know one, and because it's a grid-based system, when you clear one challenge in Smash, you figure out what the challenges directly adjacent to it are. Yeah. And then from there you basically spiderweb your way out.
And you can use those to direct your gameplay. I want to unlock this.
Yeah, and I think that simple things like that would make the game more palatable for players like you, wherein when you set your dive, you look at your challenge board and say, okay, my adjacent challenge here is, even if it is like find a coin or find the next, because there's these big like you find like a dais on the ground, and you go and you interact with it, and it says bring this type of fish here.
Yeah, well, it gives you like a little riddle.
Yeah, and even if you had that sense of clarity about what to do next, I think that'd be really helpful, and that would have been a very simple, within the scope of this game's means, change to make.
Totally. I mean, because the game knows what those challenges are. Right. It just does not tell you. And interesting enough, I know I haven't checked in a couple days, but I was trying to find out, does anyone know what these 99 challenges are? Right. I would like to know, because I would like to see that last mission. Yeah. I'm at like 70 out of 99, so I'm pretty far in there. Yeah. I've also seen almost every kind of fish. I think there's only like 60 out of like 580, I think, that I haven't seen. Yeah. So I'm decently through what this game has to offer, period. Right. In terms of the amount of optional content. Well, it's not optional, it's technically required if you want to see the credits in this game. Yeah. But I think it forces its own mystery in a very frustrating way. Like you were saying, it's trying to be like, oh, it's a mystery board. You don't know what's gonna be. It's like, well, not only do I not know what it's going to be, but I'm pretty goddamn sure it's not going to be something very different from what I've done before. Yeah. And also, I have no way of making sure that I'm directing myself to complete this, not only because I don't know what it is, but because almost all of these are locked behind random generation. And so it is totally possible that I do an hour-long dive and get 0, especially as you do more and more, get 0 mystery board things unlocked, because what if it doesn't spawn the new ULL? Or what if there's not a dais that I haven't seen before?
Right.
Like the game, because of its random generation, and as I said earlier, it's, I think, ungenerous random generation, it gives you the same thing more times, and that's only going to get more and more of a problem as you play more and realize, I've already seen all this shit. Where's the thing I haven't seen before? And again, I think that is another thing where the veneer is broken for its mystery for me. It's not mysterious for me to find Thanatos for the 5th time.
Right.
I've seen a lot of Thanatos in this game, which is interesting. I did read online that Thanatos was like a boss fish in Blue World, and now it's just like something. Frankly, I find like 2 or 3 times per dive. And it's like, why is it so special then? And so like the special elements of this game that were very cool. The first time I found it, seeing Amomatsumi, which is like this big sea slugs, got great design. Love that guy. Maybe one of the best parts of the game. I've seen Amomatsumi 4 times. And I've heard Sarah say the same fucking dialogue 4 times. And I don't care about Amomatsumi anymore. It's not this unique experience that I saw once and then it disappeared. Amomatsumi does not feel rare. It feels like by the numbers, I'm going to see this every 3 times that I go into a dive.
I think you're right. And you know, there's no real counterpoint to that. I think ultimately what it comes to, because I feel like I've largely gone through everything I have to express about Endless Ocean Luminous, but again, on a very personal level, I really want to learn how to scuba dive. Like that's one of my really big goals in my just personal life. And so for me,
my mom knows how to scuba dive.
My dad knows how to scuba dive.
Well, square up. Put them against one another.
Diving contest.
We could put them in Ocean Luminous together.
We could see who can find maybe one of those like mollusk looking things that look like a trumpet.
Oh, I like that guy. Yeah, it's a great guy.
But
you want to learn how to dive.
I want to learn how to dive, and so I like the experience of just being in the veiled sea. It's for me. It's not that the Thanatos isn't special. It's that every fish I encounter is special. And every fish I can take a...
You have an innate childlike glee and wonder.
I do. And it's just... And
which I do not, and I'm a jaded fucking grizzled bastard.
No, I don't even think
I'm saying it about myself.
Sure.
Okay.
But like, you know, I don't feel that for Pokemon anymore.
Okay, sure,
And so new Pokemon Snap for me was transparent in the way that Endless Ocean is transparent for me.
Sure.
You know, and they are games that are commensurate in a lot of ways.
Progression wise, absolutely.
I mean, I basically play this game like I'm playing Pokemon Snap. I'm in the photo mode more than half of the time that I'm swimming around. And so I think ultimately, Endless Ocean Luminous is really what you make it out to be.
Sure.
If you're playing it simply to dive and simply because you enjoy this franchise and you enjoy niche parts of Nintendo history, you have a real world interest in the ocean like I do, you're going to get out of it exactly what you want. If you go into it to progress and complete the story mode, you're gonna get your experience. And I think both experiences are equally valid.
Of course, no, totally.
And there's some discourse from various people online saying like, oh, you know, this game was not conducive to the review period. This is not conducive to how people review games. And then those reviewers saying, well, maybe it's just not a very good game. And I think that the reality is that
both are true.
Both are true.
I
for me, if I had to put a number of stars in Endless Ocean right now, I'd probably put it at a 4 stars out of 5 for me. But I'm not looking for it. I'm not looking at the game through the lens I would look at it through if I
had to review it.
If I had to review it, if I was a reviewer
or whatever.
I'm not that. And I am the type of person who is still playing Kirby's Dream Buffet. Jean and I still play that game once a week, every other week, whatever. If a game on a core level is attractive to me for an emotional level, for a mechanical level, that's really all I need. And that's kind of where I come down in the game, I think.
No, totally. And I think the one last element that I want to dive into is the multiplayer, because I've been critiquing this game left and right, and as I said, I think my appreciation of this game has decreased the more that I played it, but my appreciation of the effort that went into making this a compelling multiplayer experience, I think, only increases the amount of time that I spend with more people in this, because again, I think a lot of the dev time went to making sure that
and that's the strength of this version of Arika.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Online experiences, synchronous online experiences. I really think that a lot of the game's mechanics that do not make sense in a solo dive make a lot more sense in multiplayer. The fact that it's very hard to get all the little scanny fish to get your UML in single player, which might take you over an hour to do, is suddenly a 5-minute thing with the cooperation of 6 or 7 people that it feels a lot of fun to have that happen. The tags are something you might not even use at all when you're using single player, and that is a big part of this game. There are hundreds of tags, and there's even this little like lottery system with the balls of light that you find, which are like kind of the main collectible of this game because you're always getting them from the new fish that you scan. A lottery system that gets you more tags, but they're really only useful in multiplayer. And things like emotes, a lot of which are cooperative emotes, where it looks funny if you do it together. The stickers, the different colored outfits, of course, you can get those in single player. But, and again, another thing of the design versus the progression, it is designed to where you get a lot more currency, a lot quicker and a lot easier by playing online. And the things cost so much that it would be a pain in the fucking ass to get them if you're just playing by yourself. But you get cooperation points when you're online. You're able to explore a lot more of the maps. You get a lot more points in that way. It is very clear that they want you to play this with other people. It's a lot more fun when you find a dais or you find a box or you find a tablet to say, hey guys, I found one. Teleport over to me. Ooh, I found this fish. Oh, I need that. Tag that fish and I can go over there. There's a spirit of cooperation, of exploration, of unity that I think is totally missing from when you play by yourself. Now, it might be a more serene experience. It might be one that you can take more at your own pace because the online swims are relegated to only an hour, where you can spend as much time as you want in a solo dive. But a lot of the game's design decisions make a lot more sense when there's a lobby of 15 people and the exploration and the progression and the currency and the emotes and the tags all make way more sense in that context.
And it's just a really solid online experience.
Yeah, totally.
Arika,
no lag.
Yeah. Arika made a really fundamentally rock solid game here. And even just the fun of taking stupid pictures. We had a lot of fun with that.
The photo mode's very good.
Yeah, so I agree with you. The multiplayer does, even though I have a different appreciation for both of the modes, I think you are objectively correct about that. And as,
what else is new?
And it goes back to what we were saying before. It's sort of the production context of this game. This was made by a team that understands online.
Sure.
But a team that's not really got any foundation in single player anymore. So I think that this is a very interesting game.
Yeah,
ultimately.
And
interesting game.
Again, I like this game. I've enjoyed what I've played of it. Frankly, if we make it a point to do a dive every couple weeks or something, play online with our friends, join people who are doing streams, I think my appreciation of this game could grow if I am able to, through osmosis of playing it with other people, work my way into playing it the way that you are hoping that you will. Over a long period of time, just experiencing things, and then hopefully eventually I do see the end of that story mode. But I think that the game is so cool that they made it regardless. Even if I have major criticisms with this game, we got a third Endless Ocean game in a partner showcase, which a first party game had never been revealed in before, that we weren't sure if it's going to be a new game, and then it was. And it's late era Switch, which has this very unique vibe right now in terms of most of the games they put out being remakes. And this is not. This is something very much its own thing, and I would say to its strength and to its detriment. And I think that it's just one of the most interesting curiosities. And even though we're 8 days removed from its release, you already see this becoming a hidden gem, a Switch hidden gem of, did you know that they made an Endless Ocean game on Switch and it sold 700,000 copies or whatever? It's actually kind of cool if you want to go and play it online with some friends. It seems like there are relatively few of those on Switch because so many things are high production value and in big series and have this marketing push. Endless Ocean Luminous does not have that, and it makes it feel very distinct. And I appreciate what it brings a very unique series, a very unique niche series with a totally different gameplay feel and focus on online to the Switch library. This is a fun and unique, distinct element of that lineup of games.
And there's no doubt that that's a big part of why it's interesting.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, my friend Jonathan Holmes wrote a little bit for me for a piece I wrote about Captain Rainbow that Ars Technica never published, which is annoying, but that's a different point, where he was saying, and I agree with him to an extent.
Yeah.
He said he had this idea about how Nintendo's Switch library feels like highway driving in a way. And what he meant to say is that Nintendo knows where a lot of their games fit into the marketplace.
Yeah.
And they are just sort of coasting along.
Sure.
Not coasting along by just resting on their laurels, but making really good games, but really good games that you understand.
Sure.
And they have their place.
Yeah.
And they're market tested and whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
Endless Ocean is not that.
No.
Endless Ocean is...
Barely we got QA.
I mean, Endless Ocean is like the absolute antithesis of a lot of the Switch's biggest and best games.
Absolutely true.
And that for some people will be a positive, and for some people will be a negative.
Yeah. But I think it does retain that, obviously intentional, but in some ways maybe not intentional, because I'm sure Arika would have wanted a bigger budget and higher production value, more marketing. It retains that spirit of things like Wii and PS2, where there are these weird fuck games that sold 500,000 copies that have an interesting story behind them and feel distinct from the rest of the library.
Exactly. I mean, I love Skip. I love Chibi Robo. I love Captain Rainbow.
Yeah.
And these are the sorts of games Nintendo doesn't make anymore. And Endless Ocean Luminous is not that, of course, and on like a gameplay level or a vibes level, but it is a peculiar digression.
Totally.
When there are not always a ton of peculiar digressions anymore.
Yeah.
Not to say Switch. I think Switch Library is one of Nintendo's absolute best.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is, I don't think that there's that many games anymore like Endless Ocean Luminous.
Yeah.
And I don't.
And, you know, it's another one. Another Code Recollection.
Exactly. I mean, this is a different conversation we'll have at a different time, but I don't think that there's a problem with Nintendo making games that have low budgets that are made in maybe a year or 18 months, or maybe even less. We don't know. That
Nintendo wants championships.
Yeah,
that'll be an interesting one. We'll have a conversation about low budget, weird niche Nintendo titles in about 2 months when we play that game.
Yeah, and I'm like, and again, like I said earlier, I know why these games are the way that they are. In part, I mean, Endless Ocean Luminous, I don't even think
I know what you are.
Even if this was like 2019, I don't think the game would have had a massive budget.
Sure.
Like, I don't think this game would have ever been at any point in Switch's life cycle some marquee tentpole, but also I think that it releasing now does uniquely color the resources Arika had. So,
and it's interesting.
Yeah,
it's an interesting game.
Yeah,
and I think we've had a very good discussion about it. If you want to join us, maybe for a dive, join our Discord. Link in the description. There's not an Endless Ocean channel because no one would use it. No one actually. I don't think anyone in our server also has the game. I haven't heard anyone talking about it.
Yeah, maybe not.
You gotta be an online Nintendo freak like the people we like John Cartwright and Josh Goldie and Bill Fobble. These tricky bastards. But I say this now. We'll see how long that holds true. Always up for a dive. You say, hey, Saturday afternoon, 1 hour, do a dive. Sure. Yeah. Why not? But I'll see you guys in the veiled sea. Oh my la. Oh my la. Manix. Oh, look at that. Oh. Whoa. looks like Russian. You think if you mirror Russian text, it has a secret meaning? It says something in English. No one ever fucking thought about this. What do you think Putin's trying to say on the sly? It's like, get me out of here, the Russian Illuminati. They're forcing me to do all these shitty things.
You think Putin's actually just a really nice guy?
Yep, I think so.
It's interesting.
It's my fan.
You should post about that online.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great way to not have our channel get any viewers anymore.
All right. Do you want to do the intro? You want me to?
Please. This is Endless Ocean. This is your fucking domain.
Okay.
Take the reins to the seahorse. I don't think I've ever found a seahorse in Luminous.
I would imagine that they're probably in the last species you haven't found because there's seahorses in the Wii games. Unless they just decided to not bring seahorses back.
Yeah, I mean, there are very few that I haven't found, and most of them are either UMLs or deep sea creatures. The like top of the list I have almost completely filled out. So it's possible it's one of the like 5 or 6 that I haven't found yet. But
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean they don't have like starfish. There's one starfish.
Yeah, but it's like not a regular starfish because I found him.
No, it's like it's a fucking crown of thorns.
Yeah,
I think it's what it's called.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, it's interesting where they. I mean, there are obviously a lot of species. I'm not complaining about the number of species in the game, but it's like, no seahorses?
Yeah, especially since they're in the other games.
No urchins? No starfish? What are we doing? They got Thanatos, though.
They do.
And they got Apollo. You find Apollo? It's a big golden mola. Ocean sunfish.
I believe I did.
Yeah.
All right. You can fucking audit my Endless Ocean Luminous animal log.
What are you talking about? What?
See if I actually found these things.
Oh. I forgot what auditing means.
All right.
The only connection I have to auditing is everything everywhere all at once.
That's fair enough. I mean, that's a pretty good example of somebody getting audited.
Yeah.
All right.
That's technically the narrative thrust of the film.
True.
I just wanted to thrust with a sort of a sexual overtone.